In Carolina, hence the name, although people in Alabama say it was them. Came out in about the 1950s. Everybody used it back then for freshwater bass fishing. Made it here in the 70s, early 70s for halibut fishing. We used it a lot in the bay. I grew up in King Harbor area, and so we would use it for halibut. And then after that, we introduced it into the surf, and now it's probably the mainstay. It's made up of a sliding egg sinker, a bead, a swivel, leader material, and a very sharp hook at the end. The sliding sinker, when you get these sinkers, when you buy sliding sinkers, they're very, very bright and shiny. They look like they're chrome plated. The first thing you want to do is take that bag of them and put about 3 or 4 drops of salt water in there and just lay them out in the sun in the backyard, and within a day or two they'll turn dark gray like this. You want to have that in the surf because anytime you have something shiny in the surf, big fish will not bite your bait. Big fish in the surf got big by being smart. So, for example, take a 24-inch Corvina. That's about a 10-year-old fish. A 24-inch Dorado is about a 10-week-old fish. They'll eat anything. So the longer they're down there, the smarter they are, and the more that they can see things that are unnatural in the area that they're feeding. So sliding sinker-wise, we use anywhere between an 1/8 ounce and a 1 ounce sliding sinker. The rule on sliding sinkers is the bigger the surf, the stronger the current, the windier it is, the heavier the sinker. So let's say that you're going home from work on, let's just say Tuesday. This Tuesday's a good day for fishing. And you look out, it's really windy, and you gotta go fishing that day, you gotta go surf fishing. On the way home, you got your rod in the trunk and you're ready to go, but there's whitecaps breaking out there. You'd go down and you'd probably use 3/4 or 1 ounce sinker because all surf fish feed on the bottom. If you look at most surf fish, most croakers, they have a little barbell on their chin and they rub that in the sand looking for food. If your sinker is too light, your bait's going to be up near the surface and all the fish, the big ones in particular, are going to be swimming underneath your bait. So the bigger the surf, the stronger the current, the heavier your sliding sinker. Then the next component is the bead. I use a 6mm glass or plastic bead. In the summer, I use a clear bead because Corvina have very good eyesight. If I want to catch one, I'm not going to be able to do it on a colored bead. If you have a clear bead, it just sits down in the sand if it's natural. If I'm fishing in the wintertime, like now, I'm using a red or an orange bead because spotfin, yellowfin, croaker, perch are all attracted to those colors. They're not as wary and their eyesight's not as good as Corvina. The reason that you use a bead is if you don't, what will happen is the knot that's on top of your swivel, which is a conical shaped knot, will pound sand into the center of the sliding sinker. It'll bind on your line, and because your line is so light, it will break very easily. So if we fish 20 pound, wouldn't need a bead. There's no way it would bind. It might bind, but there's no way it would break your line. So that's what the bead's for. Below that, I use a black swivel. I don't use a zinc-plated swivel or a brass swivel. I use a black swivel so that it sits down in the sand, looks as natural as possible. When you're at the beach in the springtime, you know that it's foggy, and then the sun comes out for a few minutes, and then it gets foggy again. The sun comes out. Every time that sun comes out and beats down on your rig, if you had a bright colored swivel on there, it would be like a little piece of jewelry shining, and all the big fish would move on. They got 1 million or probably 1 billion sand crabs to choose from. Why are they going to choose yours? Because it has to look as natural as possible. So I fish a 10, a 12, or a 14 size swivel. 14 is the smallest, 10 would be the largest. And then below that, I use fluorocarbon leader. I always fish 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. And there's 2 reasons I do that. One reason is because Berkeley and Iserline and all those people have spent millions of dollars on advertising telling us it's invisible. It's not invisible completely because of course you can still tie a knot in it, but it's invisible by the sense that fluorocarbon refracts light underwater. So think about like your 8th grade science class, and you had a glass of water and you put a pencil in that glass of water, and the teacher had you look through the glass and it looks like your pencil is broken and it's not attached. That's exactly what happens with fluorocarbon laying underwater. It has a refractive quality that makes it difficult for fish to see. But what's more important is that fluorocarbon line is very abrasion resistant. And the reason for that is that your main line is an extruded monofilament. So if I'm making line, I use a plastic plug, and it's heated up, and then squeeze through a little tiny hole, and that's what makes the weight of your line. If I have a single line like that and it gets a little nick in it, it can easily break. Fluorocarbon, on the other hand, is 3 strands of monofilament woven together, heated up to make one single strand. And the benefit of that is not only is it abrasion resistant because it's thicker, but also if you nick it, it's only nicked one of those 3 strands, and there's 2 that remain intact, and it's much, much stronger. So in the surf, you know, you're going over sand and rocks and kelp and kids and surfers and all that stuff, and it abrases your line. So you want to make sure that you have fluorocarbon because it gives you a lot of abrasion resistance. The rule on your leader is the bigger the surf, the shorter your leader. Remember, we always want to be on the bottom. That's where all the fish are feeding. So if I go out and the surf is like this big or bigger, or it's real windy in the afternoon, and I have a long leader like this is maybe 28 inches long, my bait is up here at the surface. All the fish are down here by my sinker. My bait's floating right here. Because remember, when the waves break, it turns water upwards. That's why surf fishing is so good so close to shore, is that every time the water is turned upwards, all the clams and crabs and worms are taken off the bottom and put into the water column. So if your leader is too long, your bait's going to be way up here. Bigger the surf, the shorter your leader. If you were to go down in October in a Santa Ana condition day, it's really calm, waves are really small, water's super clear, long leader. You want to get as far away from your gear as possible. But remember, it's really, really calm, so you can use a long leader then, and it doesn't take it and put it way up by the surface where you know, up here where you know that you're not going to get a bite. All surf fish feed on the bottom. So remember, if you go down to the beach and you don't get any bites, the first things that you want to do are heavier sinker, shorter leader. Every beach you go to from Seattle to Cabo San Lucas is loaded with surf fish. The only exception would be right by the Tijuana Slough now, because there's a gigantic sewage dump there. But other than that, most of the coast is a great place to surf fish, and there's fish at every one. So if you go there and don't get bites, heavier sinker, shorter leader. And then the last component is our hook. I use 2 different types of hooks. This is a Owner Mosquito Light. This is a new hook that came out this year, the Light, the Owner Mosquito Light. They had this same hook before, and now it's a thinner wire hook. We look for hooks that are not only a perfect J shape, you don't want an offset hook where there's any turn in it at all, because your bait will be turned and it will spin in the water, but you want a very sharp and a very thin wire hook. Remember, you're not over the fish. You're over the fish like this. You can use a bone and stick it in the fish's mouth, hence the American Indian. Okay, they got that one. If you're casting out to a fish, and I'm the fish and it's in my mouth and you're over there, you need to have a sharp enough hook where it turns in the fish's mouth and sticks in the side of their mouth. So you need it very sharp, a very thin wire hook. So Owner Mosquito Light is a good one. Gamakatsu Split Shot Drop Shot Hook is another one. Mustad also makes an ultralight, super sharp hook too. Thin wire. If you look at the hooks that we use in the surf that are a number 2, for example, and then you were to look in your tackle box at a number 2 hook that you use for a sardine or an anchovy or on the pier or a boat, they're the same size, but the diameter of the shaft is about 5 times as thick on one you use for an anchovy or a sardine. So one of the most important things in a surf, of course, is stay on the bottom and use as sharp a hook as possible. So those are the style of hooks that I use for sand crabs, grubs, small baits.